Today on the Random Junk channel, we're going to try and repair another Mad Pumpkin patch. If you know anything about this pumpkin patch or saw the previous video, you'll know that this pumpkin is supposed to be rotating. As you can tell, it's not turning on its own, but I can turn it by hand. It's nice and smooth. I'm hoping it's just a disconnected drive shaft or a broken gear that's easily replaceable. This is for a 2-year-old girl. Her name is Avery. She loves this little piece, and we're going to try and make it work just like it used to when it was first purchased. As you can tell, the sound works, the lights are all working, and even the barrel is spinning. It does have a little bit of a hitch. We're going to see if it's got the same casting issue as it did on the previous time we took one of these apart, and make it a little bit smoother. But our big concern is to get this pumpkin head rotating. That way she'll have her favorite piece back in operation. Stay tuned. Alright, to save you the time of taking the rubber mat off and removing the glue or resin that holds the base on, which is accomplished with using a heat gun or a hot hair dryer. I use a heat stick or a heat pen, but you can use something bigger. Just be careful not to melt the plastic. The problem with this one, I broke a drive shaft. That's why the pumpkin doesn't spin. This rotates, but unfortunately this is the sheath for it, and you can see where it's been spinning, it's kind of notching the plastic. So anyhow, it's got a broken drive shaft. This will be a unique kind of repair because I got to figure out how to replace the drive shaft with something comparable. Small, thin, flexible spring cable. I'd have to go through my stuff that I have and try and find something. It's not too common that you see these things break, whether they're used in the Lemax product or in general purpose applications. So we're going to do our best to get this repaired, so Avery will have her house back. So you can see it uses a square drive on this end, and it's a flexible spring with a plastic and metal center core. So it looks like there's a metal pin or a thin piece of metal in the center, followed by a plastic sheath that the outer is wound around, which gives it this flexibility so it can rotate. Anybody that does stuff with tools may recognize this, as they do make drivers for your drill or your hand screwdriver. They're bendy drivers, so you can screw something around the corner or not quite straight on where you can't get in directly. You have to be at a slight angle. If you have those old-fashioned claw pincher picker uppers, they were made out of a spring sheath that was flexible, and out of the center came 2 or 3 or even 4 little fingers to grab stuff. So it's a technology that's been used for many years, and we just need to find something comparable that will allow this to be swaged onto the end of it. That's going to be the interesting part, and I still got to remove the top to see how it's attached up there. I'm assuming the other end is something similar to this. But since I've never had one break, I don't know. So let's take a look and see if we can see how it's mounted up inside. Yep, same thing. It's got another one of these all the way up inside, attached to the bottom center of the pumpkin. And I don't think I have pliers long enough with me at the moment to remove it. It's in there quite a ways. No, I have to go get some longer pliers. So what I need to do is, once I get the other side out, is try and find something of the same length that can be swaged onto this, or try and find a replacement shaft of some sort that has the same squared end. So for now, that's all we're going to do until I can find something, but I do also want to point out that when I pulled the bottom off, bottom has some plastic shavings on it, and this gear was full and it still has some plastic shavings. Because this drive shaft has lateral movement, just like the last one and probably just like the next one and everyone out there. And if you can see, I can move the gear back and forth, the drive shaft. It's actually grinding the gear off on this plastic housing right here, right on the inner lip. Take a razor knife and then shave a little bit of this out to allow the slack or the lash go back and forth and not grind up the plastic. And that is most likely what's causing the barrel to occasionally jerk, because this barrel is absolutely smooth. It doesn't have that little hitch in it like the last one. It has some lateral movement, so the hole that they bored into this housing is a little bit bigger than the last one, but there's no plastic piece hanging inside. I think it's just catching the base. So of course we're going to trim that before we reassemble it. So right now we're going to stop until I can find something to replace this broken drive shaft. Here is the flexible drive unit from the Lee-Max pumpkin patch, Mad Pumpkin Patch, sorry. The drive shafts have snapped clean in half. Been looking around for a new drive shaft, haven't been able to find one. So, you can't really fix this one. Welding spring doesn't work so well. If you weld it, you got a point that's going to stretch and it's going to break on one side of the weld or the other. So, looking around for something similar, couldn't find anything until I stumbled across this. This is a cleaning brush for probably a, I don't know, 22 caliber, anything from a pistol, rifle, air gun. It's brand new, but it's got the flexible spring shaft, and it's slightly bigger in diameter, but I'm going to try and bore out the aluminum, cut this, get it up inside, try and re-swage it, and see if we can make a new drive shaft out of another flexible spring. If I happen to stumble across something that's the same diameter before I get to cutting this, then I will do so. But, you know, call it the Random Junk Channel for a reason. We find random things to fix other things. Stay tuned for the progress. Alright, where we last left off is we had two broken shaft pieces. Somebody suggested to me try connecting them with a butt connector. If you don't know what those are, these are butt connectors. They connect two wires and then you crimp them. So we're going to try this as the first step. We're going to see if we can make this work. Alright, the red size is too small. The blue one is snug, which is what I want. But I don't want the blue sheathing on it. So we are going to remove the casing, and it's always a fun process. Sometimes they slide off, most of the time they don't. You can buy these without the sheathing, the insulation. Most of the time those are so you can solder them once you crimp them. I do have some, I just wasn't able to find them at the moment. So, And if this doesn't work, the next thing we're going to try is the fat spring swaging. But if this works, you can do this at home. You can get these butt connectors at virtually any place. You can get them in packs at Walmart, AutoZone, O'Reilly's. You can buy them on the internet. They usually come in, you can get them as low as like packs of 8 or 10 at the auto parts store, and as big as hundreds in bulk from the internet. If you do electrical stuff, you might have some of these lying around. If you don't, then you probably won't. Alright. No, that's just a story. A lot of times these will slide right off. But apparently this is a better quality one. Normally I'd recommend using an X-Acto knife handle, except they don't seem to last as long as the blades. They always have that plastic insert and they always break. You can't see her, but my dog came in to see what I'm doing. What's up, dog? If you watch some of the other videos, you'd see her, especially in the MRE stuff. She gets to taste test them too. Right off camera, I have a vise mounted to my bench, and that's probably what you hear clunking. I'm trying to get the sleeve off. Got it. So that's what the inside looks like. If you're going to do it, make sure that you get the lock caps put on first. I had a buddy of mine who does robots. He actually builds robots. Suggests this as a first attempt versus trying to make a new one. He recommended using a clamp-on fitting, which is basically what a butt connector is. It's a round piece of metal that has a split in it, as you might be able to see. You use a tool like this right here to crimp it onto the wire. What I did is I opened it a little bit so this fits in so I can crimp it. Now, those who have never used one of these, in the middle there's a divot on both sides that prevents you from shoving it all the way through. That way both sides are in at the same depth. Now the seam on these crimpers, you see one side's got it up and one side's got it down, or a protrusion and then the opposite protrusion. I can't think at the moment. You want to put the side with the protrusion up and put the seamed part into the curve of the jaw and then squeeze. I'll show you in just a moment. If you do it sideways, you risk flaring out the pinch. So you can see there's the indentation on the back, and the side that's curved on the jaw right there is on the side with the seam, and then it doesn't come out. Some might notice the clear plastic tubing isn't on here. Unfortunately, that won't fit over the piece I'm pressing on, but we're going to see if it works. You can always get slightly larger tubing or split the tubing so it goes from here to here and then again here to here. Now, it was in there originally like this, which is going to put a lot of stress on our new crimp, so we're going to rotate it this way and see if that keeps it in balance. This is just the first test. If it doesn't work, we'll move on to the next one. Another way to make this more secure is you can actually heat this up with a soldering gun and run some solder down in here to bond the spring material to the actual butt connector itself. I want to try it this way first and see if I can get it to work. And I'm going to run a test on it, probably let it run for half an hour, 20 minutes, somewhere in there. If it doesn't throw itself off track immediately upon insertion and powering. It's not the best repair, but it is a repair that you could probably try at home. So before y'all try it at home, we're going to try it here and see if it works. And if it does, I'll probably drip some solder on here to seal the seam and prevent this from expanding from the slight bend it's going to have. Because over time, with temperature and use, there's a chance that might expand since there's no plastic sheath on it anymore to help keep it tight. So I'm going to reassemble the house with this in it, and we're going to plug it in and see if it works. So I'll be back momentarily. Alright, back in. The bottom is not glued on, but as you can see, it's working. There's the volume. So I'm going to let it run and see if it has any screw ups. So we're just going to let it do this for, I don't know, like I said, 20 or 30 minutes. If it works, I'll clean up the swage fitting and this one will be back together. If it fails, I will go to the next one, which would probably be making this try and work. And this is that piece of plastic that they used inside to help guide it. Like I said, you can always cut it and stick it on both sides of that swage fitting, because that's a pretty steep bend and that's where it broke. So now that swage fitting's up here, and you can see where it damaged the plastic when it broke. You can see where it cut into the inside. So there it is. There it goes. I'll come back in about a half an hour, see if it's still spinning. If it is, we'll clean it up, reassemble it, and go on to the next one. Here is the Mad Pumpkin Patch running for 40 minutes now. As you can see, the pumpkin head is still spinning and that it's running extremely quiet. I'm going to get close to the unit so you can listen for a few moments. It has a very light hum, which is just the motor inside turning all the gears that drive the pumpkin barrel and the pumpkin head. The repair, for this one at least, was just crimping on a butt connector after removing all the insulation. If yours has a broken drive shaft, do the same thing. It may work for you. You can buy them with the insulation or without. The size I used is the color blue, which I, off the top of my head, cannot remember the gauge at the moment, but the gauges are written on the package. Hopefully you can do this at home, and this video will help you fix a broken flexible drive shaft on the Mad Pumpkin patch. Don't forget, the other stuff we did at the beginning was we did clean up the gear slots in the bottom that allow the pumpkins to rotate. For the solid drive shaft that runs across the bottom, we went ahead and cleaned up the bosses so there was less drag, and that way the pumpkins spin smoother. And when I didn't have it apart, I did clean the bottom of this, like on the very first video, where I removed the casting tabs that weren't completely cleaned off during assembly, so that way they also move smoothly. So there was a total of 3 modifications done to this house: flexible drive shaft repair, solid drive shaft cleanup, and removing the extra pieces of plastic from the rotating barrels. Hopefully this helped, and if you have a Mad Pumpkin patch, hopefully this video and the previous video will help you repair it at home. If you have any questions or concerns, please leave them in the comments below. And thank you for watching the Random Junk channel. Till next time.